Hello and welcome to today's Unicon Zoom meeting, Pedagogical Innovations, Best Practices through the Perspective of some of the major business schools around the world. My name is Rob Dietl. I'm a Director of Executive Programs at MIT Sloan Executive Education, and I'm delighted to be your host today. The topic of pedagogical innovation is probably now more than ever at front of mind for many of us in executive education and at business schools throughout the world. In fact, over the last several months, many of us have probably been forced to innovate in pedagogy and how we deliver our programs. So really delighted today to bring you a wonderful group from Brazil that were responsible for publishing a Unicon research report in 2019 on this topic. Before we begin with today's presentation, I do want to cover just a few housekeeping rules. As you can see on the slide displayed on the screen, like all Unicon events, today's Zoom meeting adheres to the Unicon antitrust competition statement aimed at preserving fair, honest, and vigorous competition in the marketplace. Also want to just let you know that today's Zoom meeting will also be recorded and that we'll be sending you via email a link to this recording after today's session concludes. So if you have colleagues that aren't able to attend, please feel free to encourage them to watch the recording of today's session. Also wanted to just point out that a full copy of the report, again published in 2019, is available on the Unicon website. Encourage you to get the report, download it, and read it in full at your leisure. I think that covers all of our housekeeping announcements for the morning. So with that, I'd like to just acknowledge that we have the full research report team here with us today. Brazil is well represented. We have Flavia Angeli Gysi Nielsen, João Paulo Bittencourt, Bill Presada, Carolina Costa Cavalcanti, and Barbara Maionchi Berardo joining us for today's session. The session is going to be led, the format for today is Bill Presada will be leading us through a series of slides and content. We encourage you to keep your camera on but your microphone muted, and we'll certainly allow time at the end of the presentation for questions and answers, at which point all of the research committee will be available to answer your questions. With that, Bill, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to begin this little talk of ours by, first of all, thanking Unicon for sponsoring this research project. I would also like to thank the participating Unicon schools who participated in the research for their time and their effort in helping us. I'd also like to thank Fundação Dom Cabral, FDC here in Brazil, for their total support, and especially Professor Ademir, who also gave his full support to the group. As you know, as you can see, we were 5 members in this research team. 18 months of rather arduous work. It was a spiny trail, a lot of detours, a lot of rethinking of the project. The times were hard. We wanted to do a qualitative research, but it was impossible for circumstances beyond our control. So we had a lot of stops and goes, but we finally reached the final research project, and it's already published, as I understand, on the site, isn't it, Dan or Rob? It's on the site, right? So we live in a turmoil these days, you know, fast-paced living, constant change, uncertainty all over us, old models not working, new models having to be devised and everything. So the Unicon wanted to understand, you know, what's going on in the business schools. You know, how are they handling this? What are they doing in terms of pedagogical innovation? And we wanted to see this. We chose to see this through the eyes of the directors, of the presidents, of people who are in charge of this type of innovation. All right. And so what were we looking for? You know, we found out that, you know, the pressures of modern day society are upon business schools. And so as a result of this pressure of their markets and everything, they have to innovate pedagogically, okay? So to do that, you need a PD department, a pedagogical department, to act as a catalyst, and a catalyst for what? For example, for innovation, for development, for modernization of your executive education. The PD has to define things, has to define what methodologies are going to be used by their faculty, what learning strategies are best for their students and their focused, their market. And for the faculty as well. What this report does is it discusses and it analyzes the practices, and if you want to call them best practices, of 11 schools, major schools of business schools around the world. What their experiences are, what challenges they're facing, how are they dealing with this? Basically, what proactive strategy in pedagogical innovation that they're using. Okay. Of course, we needed some type of theoretical framework, so we came up with a conceptual framework. We came up with 6 different dimensions, and of course, there are many others. So don't mistake me when I say this. This is something that the 5 researchers came to agree on. All of us work in education in one position or another, as teachers, as researchers, as heads of departments, as heads of innovation, etc. So we came up with this nice little framework of 6 different dimensions, those being, and they're kind of really self-explanatory. So we came up with faculty development as one, learning design as another, learning innovation, the digital culture, mapping trends, and participant experience. So these are the six concepts that we were going to work with. And so through these, we developed our work in terms of the questionnaire we were going to deal with, what information we wanted to give us some orientation. Of course, after that, we had our objectives. Okay, we had two types of objectives. Obviously, the primary objectives and the secondary objectives. The primary objectives in the first part of the research was focused on 7 schools. Okay, it was 7 on schools. So it was on pedagogical innovation. We were trying to find out what initiatives, what contributions, what experiences the PDs had. Okay, and in the major business schools, obviously, and how these initiatives, or how the PD generated value. Okay, so those are our primary objectives. The secondary objectives were basically to identify those contributions. And if we could find out the value generated by specific contributions, and finally analyze the actions and what business schools are doing within this framework of these six dimensions. Now, the research was divided into 2 phases. Phase 1 and phase 2, as you can see on the chart here. Phase 1 was only 7 schools. All right, the first phase we included 7 schools. The main objective was, the main phase was to identify these contributions of these 7 schools and the value that their PD department, the PD generates for them. As I said, 7 schools from 7 different countries. Phase 2, we analyzed the business schools in terms of their actions to transform what they consider pedagogical innovation. And this included 4 schools. Okay, so phase 1 was 7 schools, phase 2 was 4 schools. We had a total galaxy of 11 schools in the end. Our primary data was qualitative research, parentheses here. We wanted to do a quantitative research which included all the Unicon members. But at the time, like 2 years ago, the members were getting a lot of research questions, and they were involved in a lot of stuff, so it wasn't possible. So we had to change course, like in the middle, to come to qualitative. So the qualitative research guided us took us to focus and to lean on the comprehension of to understand pedagogical innovation in general terms of the 11 schools that we were studying. We studied the complexity of it, how deep it went, how it was structured, where it actually was acting. And finally, the subjective and the respective dimensions of the respondents in terms of these 6 dimensions. Remember, we were always focused on these 6 dimensions. All right, what was our research methodology? So as I said, we studied 11 schools. They were all major business schools. All of them were Unicon members. We had 4 continents represented, and 1 region. So we had North America. The region was Central America, South America, Europe, and China. Okay, so we had the 4 continents and 1 region represented. The 11 schools were divided up into 7 countries. So from top to bottom again, we had the US, we had Mexico, we had Costa Rica 3, we had Brazil 4, Spain 5, Switzerland 6, and China 7. So those were the 7 schools represented of the country, representative countries. And as I said, 4 continents and 1 region. The idea here was to try and get a global view of everything because we were looking for an international business schools and major schools and around the world. So it seems pretty representative of that. Again, we were helped a lot by Unicon because they suggested a lot of schools. They were the interface between the research team and the schools. They made the first contact, told them what we were going to do. So that was a lot of help. Just so you have an idea, here are some of the schools, the 11 schools that were researched and their corresponding country and continent. So you have the list there, which is pretty nice list actually. Okay. You might question, could we have more? Yes, but time restraints all across the board were really tough. So, and it was qualitative. So, we weren't able to do the quantitative. So, okay, we had these nice 11 schools represented. Basically, what were our results? Okay, in the first phase, talking of the seven schools that were studied. Basically, these 7 schools are aligned with the idea or with a concept of a pedagogical department. Okay, of a PD department. They're aligned with that. Of course, each one operates independently. They have their particular strategies. Why? Because each one has its own culture. They have different context. There's a different need in each school for the creation for new methodologies and new teaching and learning methodologies. There's different values also in terms of different areas on how their stakeholders perceive value of a PD. Okay, we did notice at the end that most of PDs are born from internal factors. All right. Basically, all the PDs require or need senior management. All right, that's seen across the board. Why? Because you need people with experience. People with experience, people who have lived the problems, who have faced the challenges, who have overcome them, have found solutions. All right, and as well because the pedagogical innovation, it involves a lot of things. It involves innovation. It involves your practical support. It involves budgeting. It involves mobilization of your key stakeholders. Sometimes you need the physical presence of managers on site. Because they need to give support. We also noticed that the more developed and more long-lived a pedagogical department is, one of the key reasons for that is that they receive support from top management. It's a top-down thing. So as you go up the ladder, the more support they get, the longer they last, and the more developed they become. It makes sense. And of course, what they do, if they're more developed and longer lived, their actions are more readily absorbed by the culture of the school or the institution. All right. Of course, there are hundreds of challenges. Here, I want to highlight just some of them. Okay. You have a little list here. You can find the rest and a detailed description of these in the published report, which, as I said, is on the Unicon site. But just to mention a few, and again, they're kind of self-explanatory. So we had innovation as one that stood out. The PD has a big challenge of justifying its existence. Why do I exist? Why do you guys need me? So that's a big challenge for them. Another challenge, which most of us have faced, faculty resistance. I, as a professor, why do I want to change something, or why do I want to use a new methodology or something digital if it's working for me already and I'm in my comfort zone? So we have that, they have that big challenge. And then of course, there's also that factor, which is, we have to perceive the need to change, just because somebody tells me that I have to change or that the market says I have to change doesn't really mean that I'm going to accept that change. So another big challenge is getting people to perceive that change, and all the stakeholders. It runs from top down, it runs across the board for all the stakeholders. And finally, scope and demand, which is another very, very important challenge that the PDs faced. Scope depends on several factors, as I mentioned, support of the PD, budgeting, if you have the funds to do what you want to do, if you have the liberty to do things that the PD wants to develop in the school. So scope is a big challenge. And then of course, demand, internal demands, okay? And that internal demand can be faculty, it can be from the directors of the school, and of course the external demands, which are your main stakeholders. What does the market need? What do specific companies need? What do specific students need? So the scope and demand is really a very delicate situation, and I'm not going to say it's complex, but it's sophisticated. There are a lot of things that go into this. All right, we notice that in terms of what a PD can do and what it does throughout the 11 schools, a lot of variation. And obviously, we're talking about different parts of the world. And so this variation, it goes not only in terms of width, but depth as well. So you have a lot of variety on how far schools go, how deep they go, and what they can do. And finally, they're limited to as I said, to the structure, scope, and even some of the concepts, which obviously interfere and affect directly the operation and the function of a PD. So all these things were tried to be taken into consideration during the project. But it's interesting to see that well, at least the PDs, they're aware of their challenges, and you can see the list here, and they're no small challenges, really. They're no small challenges. Let's talk about our results now. Some schools are really good at creating and adapting methodologies. Some of their PDs are really good at that. Again, variety and width are all over the board. The PDs are using, they're assimilating, they're adapting, they're creating their teaching and learning methodologies. And of course, obviously, there was a very diverse use and even concept and adaptation throughout all the schools. Here you have a nice little chart of the 7 first schools, so you can see some of the things that they do. So just taking a couple here, for example, School A, they use their methods to improve learning outcomes. They pay a great attention to overall student experiences. You can see School C seems to be in a nice comfort zone, okay, because there's no real development in terms of teaching methodologies. School D was interesting. They're using online learning, okay, which today is very relevant, obviously. And so you have a nice little chart here of how schools and some sort of creating or adapting their PD methodologies created by the department. All right. Again, in the published report, it's much better. All right. Now let's look at our six dimensions. Those 6 dimensions I spoke about at the beginning. The ones that kind of guided us through the research. Like I said, kind of self-explanatory. So we have faculty development. We saw some schools encouraging faculty to actually watch other teachers giving class as a way to recycle, as a way to get new ideas, especially when you have a professor who has something new that he's doing or on his own. So PDs are encouraging that. They're also encouraging faculty members to participate in programs. So as a participant, okay, so Again, for what? To get a better understanding of things. Like, as we said, our modern world today is so fast paced and so changing, changes is one day to the next something changes. So there is encouragement in this first dimension of faculty development. In the second dimension, which is I can't see my sign, which is learning innovation. Again, what are the PDs doing? All of them are actively going after new products, looking for new programs, analyzing their curriculum if it needs changes, and these changes are in school and to meet needs of other stakeholders or companies, which are their clients. Some of the schools are actually promoting formal events for what? For a better connection between their clients or the companies. Okay, why do they want that? Because it's a two-way street. They have to they want to know what their clients need, what experiences their clients have, what learning deficits they want to overcome, and overall needs. There are a few initiatives for artificial intelligence, but few. There's few artificial intelligence uses. There's few big data uses. Incubation of ed techs in learning innovation, very, very few initiatives. In terms of the pedagogical innovation, not all the external groups of schools are not using different professionals to participate in brainstorming sessions or coming up with new ideas. They're basically focused inward. So some schools use like a think group with all kinds of professionals, from actors to singers to astrologists, to come up with new ideas and new brainstorming tools, methodologies. And so this is not being well used. All right. In terms of our learning design, again, all respondents are basically related to their curricular activities, okay, of the institution. So basically, they're focused on their student-centered learning, the autonomy, the meaning learning, as you can see here, active and collaborative learning. Of course, they want and are actively going after improving their programs, mainly on feedback, okay, from the institution, from their students, even from their professors, from the faculty. So that's a very important and interesting point. Of course, all this indicates that the schools are what? They're very worried about maintaining and keeping that reputation that they have. And those who want to better that, they want to build a reputation. So sometimes they build that on specific characteristics and principles that they've developed. All right. And of course they want to do this so they can be unique. They can differentiate themselves from the others. This first phase we did have, as you will see in the published report, the participants rated the 6 dimensions. All right. So for instance, one of the lowest scores, as you can see here, just to give you an example, in terms of PD promoting international workshops, for specialists, in design education and learning innovation. Like to train the director, to train PD departments, or some schools don't have a PD department, so they have a professional or a group of professionals which work in that. So even though this was a low score, they're trying to promote this. Why? Because they're new tools in the market, they're new methodologies, and these methodologies obviously are a very useful tool not only for the professor but for the schools to what? To in the end. It's all about the client experience, the student experience. So by doing this, they can have a big impact on this. Digital culture, okay? I don't know if I should talk about this now because, now everybody is into digital culture. Before the pandemic, I was reading articles and like, in 10 years, in 20, in 2 decades, we're going to start seeing more digital culture. And then all of a sudden, overnight, I mean, literally overnight, everybody's no more presential. So this is something which took everybody by surprise, some of us anyway. So in terms of what are the PD departments doing in terms of digital culture? Well, they're trying to promote some production, basically, of digital content, materials. How do you use digital culture to improve your learning? All right. There are some schools investing in digital transformation, meaning what? Getting their program onto a digital base, okay? Doing what? We all know, text is easy to go digital. Videos, infographics are popular, concept maps, all those things. So they were starting to invest in this transformation. Some schools are investing in the environment. So to do that, to have that virtual learning environment, what do you need? You need good software. You need apps. You need programs to fit that learning environment. The faculty has to know how they can use this. If you're from old school and you get, look, everybody can do it on their cell phone. Or the other day I was 2-3 months ago, I was in a event where I had to get my cell phone and send a word to the presenter, and all of a sudden, all the words appeared on screen. Well, that was kind of alien for me, because I'm old school. So the schools are investing in these learning environments, and they have to invest in their faculty and their directors to know how to explore these resources. All right, and to do that, they need support of the pedagogical practices and new products. Okay. Some schools have access to virtual libraries and even labs, and of course participant communication tools, etc. We did notice in terms of digital culture, there's a lack of metrics. Okay, nobody's really knows how to measure this. Probably this dimension here is is changing and will change for sure with this new the new situation we're in, obviously. So obviously people are going to get on their horse and start seriously looking at metrics and getting variety. All right, getting variety. When we're talking about so the next trend, the next dimension was executive mapping trends. Okay, the executive mapping trends. Most schools are doing their homework, are doing their primary research and studies with their clients, not only with their clients, but with their potential clients, even people who are not their clients right now in terms of education. They are researching their companies. They're talking to visionaries, other higher learning institutions. There's a lot of that going on, and they're using market consultants and other things like to find out where the executive education is going, what the market needs. What they're not doing, what some PDs are not visiting incubators and think tanks, okay, which could in fact help direct future education. Of course, that can vary, but how long and how far into the future do you want to go? For instance, if we had done this before, maybe we wouldn't have been caught by surprise by this pandemic, which threw us into the digital culture as it did. So they're not getting these people. They're not getting new ideas. They're not visiting Silicon Valley for a collective vision. All right. So that's something that's worrisome. This might be the worst of the PDs. They're not really getting into this yet. I haven't, probably because they have other priorities, budget restrictions, time restrictions, people restrictions, and all that. But it is an area which the PDs could take more advantage of in order to explore, develop pedagogical innovation at their schools. All right. And finally, the last one, the sixth one, is the participant learning experience, which again, self-explanatory. So in the first phase, all the schools presented similar and high scores. So they're very, very concerned with my experience as a student in their program. Okay. So very, very important. They do evaluate their program proposal, and they're mapping this participating learning experience by, would I, as a participant in the program, as one of the students, would I recommend this program to others? Would I say, oh, this is a good program, do it. So they are looking at that mapping in that sense. They are promoting interaction between participants. All right. They think it's a good idea to stimulate collaborative learning. Okay. They're trying to map the learning needs, and competencies that their stakeholders, their clients need, and this is constantly changing. So they're mapping that so that they can offer these solutions to their clients. All right. In terms of results. All right. So what are some general conclusions we can come to? Well, business schools are, if not promoting, are worried about, they're concerned, they're thinking about pedagogical innovation. Where? Not only in the learning environment, okay, but also in the teaching environment. So on these two areas, they are very, very focused on promoting this innovation. All right. Faculty development, of course, plays a huge role in this. All right. How do you train teachers? How do you support teachers? How do you get a teacher's idea that's a really good idea that he's using in only one class? How do we get it and disseminate it to others? So faculty development is very important in all the PDs. Learning innovation, digital culture, and mapping trends, okay, could be better developed. All right. They're not being fully used as they could. So these areas have to be explored by the PD. Of course, I think digital culture with this new situation that we're living is going to explode. All right, people are going to be forced to look at it, forced to invest, forced to develop, forced to transform. And here, the last thing is obviously the digital culture today is bringing significant changes, and significant changes in the sense that these are not going to be transitory changes. They're going to be permanent changes. And so this is going to be a very interesting and exciting a field to look into. In terms of our key point summary, what can we summarize from this 18 months of work and all these 11 schools? One, the PD has to become a consolidated entity within the institution. All right. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's non-existent, sometimes it's one specific individual, sometimes it's a group of interested individuals. In some schools, it comes from top down. All right. So, but to do this, you need senior profile. I personally feel that you don't exclude your younger faculty, okay, because new ideas are always good. But basically, you require seasoned professionals, okay, seasoned professionals. All right. The team expected to find a lot more innovative practices than we did in terms of your teaching and learning. Okay. There was innovation, obviously. There always is some innovation, but before we started the research, we kind of all looked at each other and said, yeah, man, this is going to be great. We're going to see a huge amount of innovative practices. And as you saw in the slide of the schools here, schools see there's no development going on. They're quite happy. They're quite nice, and they're in a nice comfort zone. Okay, they're surviving very well. They're successful. I'm not saying that just because you need this, you have to develop this to be successful. They're successful in their area. But we were surprised that we didn't observe more innovative practices across the board. There are, as we said, a lot of challenges facing the PD. Two stand out. One is innovation and the scope. All right, so that is a very, very big challenge, because the scope, they've got so many demands. There's so many demands upon the PD that they're limited. Okay, they have to do a lot with a little. Okay, and that sometimes is impossible. It affects quality, of course. Some schools, there was some resistance to faculty, as I mentioned before. I have to perceive the value of change or the need for change, so that I can embrace it and so I can make it work. And there was actually some resistance to the actual PD, the actual PD department. You know, we teachers, I'm a professor, as most of us are, we're very jealous of how we teach and what methodologies we use, and we're very jealous of, and we don't like to be told what to do. So we have to perceive this value and this need for change. Okay, and it's not always apparent to me as a teacher because I don't see the whole picture at times. All right, and then but this concept and we think that the innovation is a culture that has to be established. There has to be a concept in everybody's mind. So it still remains a big challenge for PDs. Easy to talk about innovation, difficult to develop it and implant it. Few of the schools actually evolved in terms of personalized learning. And there was a lot of discussion between the group here, between the five of us, of why this happened, you know, and what do you mean by personalized learning? Flexible learning, you know, each participant kind of knows where he wants to learn or the journey he wants to take, you know, and he knows his needs because he's living them. But you know, so why isn't this being developed? Well, you know, priorities, budget restrictions, cost benefit. So, but very few are undergoing this. Most schools are focused in what? Oh, how do I get my overall student experience to a new level? You know, how do I get them to really enjoy this? So they're still concentrated on that. Okay. There is a lack of clarity about the concept of innovation in education, okay? And this is not just in these schools. It's between the five of us have different ideas and concepts about innovation. The literature has tons of different concepts in it. So we had to narrow it down. So that's why we chose 6 interpretations. And as I told you before, we all come from the education market. So we're either teachers, we're either developers, we're either directors of innovation. You know, we use innovations in our classes. So these 6 concepts kind of guided that. All right. So there needs to be more clarity on what exactly the concept of innovation means. Some business schools are very, very eager. They're hungry for change. All right. Again, why? Maybe it's the culture where they're inserted. Maybe it's the external demands which they receive. So some of them are very eager to change. Some are I would say, like in a standby position. Okay, they're keyed in. They know the trends. They want to see the trends to see where they are in terms of this. So they're paying attention to the trends. And some, as schools see, as I mentioned, are in their total comfort zone. And they're waiting for something to happen. You know, why change something good that's good? You know, until I see a demand for that, until my stakeholders come and say, look, we want change. They're in a very nice idle position, you know, surviving and successful. We're not saying that just because you're not changing or you're not innovating, you're not successful. So within their particular culture and their particular region, they're very comfortable. But you know, the innovation, it's all over the board. You know what they're doing and what the concept is. Just to discuss a little bit of those 6 dimensions in terms of faculty development, different practices. This is kind of like a little summary of everything. So yes, the PDs are aware that, you know, learning design is very important. It has a very good effect on pedagogical innovation. Your learning in information, again, some schools are promoting new curricula, new products. They're trying to connect with businesses because it's an easy way to find out what the trends are, what the needs are. They're exchanging experiences with companies and even learning expectations. Okay, so if a company sends a student or a collaborator to the school, he has certain expectations of how that participant should come back to his business and be effective. All right, PDs the methods created by the PD in terms of learning design are being used. Okay, they have each PD has its own unique characteristics. okay, for innovation, which of course is a reflection of where they're inserted. It also reflects on the school's DNA, all right, of the learning experience of the participants. So that influences that. Digital culture, again, some schools are promoting content for online, for blended programs. This is going to change, okay? This is going to change. No, it already has changed, you know, so advancing a little bit, you know, further research. This would be a great area to start researching, because obviously what we discovered here is no longer really valid, because it changed completely. No longer good enough to just put content online or have a blended program. The PD has to see what works or what not. And as I said before, I've read articles that say, oh, we're going to see this digital culture in maybe a decade or two, and all of a sudden one day tonight, this decade or two has arrived, you know, and stopped everything. So this is going to change a lot. Mapping trends, again, schools are interested in it. They're focused on it. They're trying to look at trends. Basically, they're doing their primary research and studies with their current clients. Okay, so you know, what does the current client need? Of course, they're not restricted to that. They're going after potential clients. Okay, so again, this is all intertwined and interlinked. They're going after potential clients to offer things which are new, all right, which would be something good for potential clients. They are looking at different educators, different companies. Some are looking at visionaries and other learning institutions in order to develop these mapping trends. Okay, and finally, you know, you have your participant experience, which is number one on the concern of the PDs. They evaluate this experience, and as I told you, they map that. Or they gauge that by seeing if the student answers nicely, you know, yes, I really enjoyed the course, but mainly, you know, would you recommend this to somebody else? You know, because word of mouth is a very powerful marketing tool. So they are trying to evaluate participant satisfaction. Again, several different methodology, each has its own characteristics of doing that for evaluating, like I said, not only the participants' experience, but also how the program worked in terms of the delivered goods. All right, did the program achieve its ends? Did it meet its ends? Did it meet the participants' needs? Okay. Concluding, the pedagogical department does make a difference. Okay, its initiatives do make a difference. The initiatives seem to add value to the experience in terms of the executive learning experience. Okay, so it adds value. Again, the perception of value varies in depth. Okay, and in terms of the different stakeholders. All right. The PD does come up with new ideas. It comes up with new technologies. It comes up with new methodologies. All right, and these are being used by teachers. All right, in spite of the resistance. All right, if you have a more developed PD, you know, these new technologies are being used in terms of the designers of the courses and of the project managers. All right, perception of value of the participant. There is a value perception in that. Okay, so the participant value is seen as receiving that or more, which was said to him. So the program does achieve the perception, the value perception that the participants need. The results and the findings of this research project do provide some grounds for new directions in more investigation. Okay, so if you read the entire report, you will see that there are other ways of investigating, other directions of investigation which should be investigated and studied. All right, the digital culture is one of them. Right, this is something I would even say is you know, for today or for tomorrow, as we say in Brazil, you know, should be done tomorrow. So there is these directions for new and better and more research. As I said many times already in this quick presentation, this post-pandemic environment is going to completely rewrite everything. There's a new context. It's going to affect PD departments and schools. They're going to have to deal with it, okay, in terms of the executive indications. Companies are dealing with it, so they're going to have to deal with it. Companies are going to have new needs, new needs and new necessities, so the schools are going to have to address those. And finally, the role of the PD becomes extremely important for school success, all right? Not only in this new scenario, but overall. Very important for the success for success of the school in which the PD is inserted in. Right? Good. Any questions? I guess
Bill,
I can open it to questions now.
Yeah, Bill, thank you very much for leading us through that very thoughtful and comprehensive look at pedagogical innovation. At this time, you may want to stop sharing your screen, which will enable a larger gallery view of all our participants. We would encourage you to go ahead and unmute yourself if you have any questions that you'd like to ask. And I know, Bill, that you also mentioned that you'll be joined at this point by your colleagues from the initial research report to help you field any questions. So
we have all of us here for any questions that you might have or anything that you want to clarify. All right. Hello, everybody. Now I can see you all.
I might start with one question, Bill. As you looked at these different schools, did you get any sense of commonalities in terms of the structure? It sounds like there was a lot of variation between different PDs, but were there any commonalities in terms of maybe the size of the group or matching maybe somebody kind of senior level with junior faculty? Any thoughts on the commonalities that might exist?
Anyone want to answer that? Or do you want me to answer it?
Go ahead.
All over the board, okay? We have schools with a very, very nicely developed pedagogical department. We have other schools that have one person that is in charge of it. We have schools that have a group of faculty who are interested in developing this innovation. We have and sometimes the president of the school is also involved. So not only on a very haphazardous type, so all over the board. Some don't have it, like School C. They're very comfortable. So they map their own trends the way they think they should. There's no specific individual for that or department. So across the board, very huge variety. Which, as I said, we need a clear concept on the pedagogical department. We need a clear understanding of what if we want everybody on the same page on what pedagogical innovation exactly is and what the department or what a PD should do and could do. All right. So and I think there's all this variation because everybody has this different concept and different idea of how the PD should work or not. Yeah, there is a certain. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, but when they do have a PD department, it's around like 5 or 6 people. It's not much more than that.
Great, thank you. And just a reminder, you're free to unmute your microphone. If you have any questions, feel free to jump in.
I have a question, and you may have covered this, maybe I missed it, but I did notice that you said that one of the things with the PDs really being successful is sometimes faculty don't see a need to change. And I anticipate, when we ask faculty to make changes, that's usually what we get. What did you notice from some of the schools that were a little more successful with working with their faculty in getting them to be a little more open to change? Or what are what did you notice? What tips for that?
João, Carol?
Well, we noticed that, yes, it is a big challenge to encourage faculty to look at learning design with a different eye, especially when it involves new methodologies and technologies. But I believe that right now, with all that we are seeing, much of this resistance is falling apart because faculty actually understands the need to look for those new paths to, actually be able to work. So maybe the data that we collected a year and a half ago, showing a lot of resistance and maybe a small group going on new adventures and trying new things and trying to innovate. Maybe that will last for some time. But right now, as we work with faculty, we already notice a big difference on the interest. Please show me new methodologies. How can I use this technological tool to engage the participants of my course, to create things, to give opinions, to share, to compose projects. So yeah, I think maybe this is a good moment for us to start bringing faculty together and building together this new path on constructing new methodologies.
Yeah, that would be a very interesting line of investigation, also. One thing that I found very interesting in one of the schools is that they pay close attention to their faculty. They're really worried about their faculty and how they keep class. And when they find a teacher that does something new in the class, and maybe that teacher doesn't tell anybody about it, but it really works for him, they identify that and then they try and disseminate it. So I like that a lot, especially in personally speaking, if I do something well and somebody wants, I would like to share it. Sometimes I don't share it because I don't have the means to do it, or I've got other priorities, or I don't remember it, or but anyway, they were tuned in on this. So that was one thing that happened. But yes, again, and what Carol said, with this new environment that we're facing, I mean, even the die-hard professor, I'm forced to change, I'm almost forced to change because it's a completely different universe that I'm on. I mean, I'm on a screen now. So, my old method of walking around the classroom, the other day, I kidded with my students, I have a hard time walking to the back of the classroom, with you guys. So this new environment is maybe will force the teacher to accept change a little bit better. Because I mentioned before, we have a certain resistance. We're jealous about the way we teach. We're jealous about our material and all that, And, I get this new tablet. What do I do with it? Crazy. João.
Yeah, Bill, I agree with you, and I would like to add something that the engagement involves awareness raising, since there are challenges we are facing as professors, and we face challenges like resource and time constraints. So when we found some good initiatives, they were almost related to the PD professionals executing their roles as partners of the professors, of the faculty. So they ask, how can we help you to do what you have to do, but better, facing the challenges you face? What challenges do you face right now? So this is related to the other PD's challenges that Bill has mentioned, because this is related to the scope and demand. What do I expect from the PD, or what do I know about the PD's work? If I don't know them, if I don't know the professionals, there is some boundaries that have to be broken. So when we see the PDs working in its, in some cases, it was very, very nice to know about the strategies to be closer to the faculty. It was almost always related to partnership, and in this case, the seniorship of the professionals who are in the PD, who are working in the PD. It is very important because these professionals know or are able to know the challenges the faculty is facing. So it brought them closer. Not an easy task, but something like that. Use it to help.
Yeah, another thing is if the PD department is well developed and it is going out to its stakeholders, to its current clients, to non-clients, and it gets the needs from these clients, it's easier to go to the faculty and say, look, this client needs this. So we have to give that to them because that's what they expect from us. So again, if you go to the faculty in terms of, look, this is what we need, instead of saying, look, this is what you have to do, it might be better. And again, why senior management or why senior personnel in a PD department? Because most senior personnel already have a good market sense. They know what's happening in the corporate world in terms of what specific things need. Even though it's a fast changing world, a lot of the senior personnel do consulting out. So they're kind of, their radar is on for new trends and what the client needs. So that would help fight teacher resistance as well. Because sometimes as a teacher, I'm very focused in what I'm doing, and I don't have time to get the big picture of what's happening out. So here's a very important role for the PD to support the teacher in changing things or meeting the needs that the school that the school sees that have to be met for their stakeholders.
Great. I see we're approaching the top of the hour. We probably have time for one or two more questions. Anybody have a final question?
Yeah, Bill, congrats for your presentation. It was brilliant. I have a question, actually. I see in my classes that I have a profile that is, let's say, more junior than I had, for instance, 10 years ago. Even if we talk about this executive education, I see that change in terms of experience inside classroom. And I see that different tools are better for, let's say, this new generation. And I would like to hear a bit about how these different tools can be used in these different profiles, because I see that the expectations of this, let's say, new generation is more about, let's say, entertainment than education. And for us as professors, it's very easy for us to entertain people, but I fear that I'm not delivering real meaningful content. So I would like to hear a bit from my colleagues if this is just a perception or a misperception that I have, or if other colleagues do have the same perception, reality in our day-to-day activities.
Oh, excellent observation. Anybody want to handle that? Excellent observation, yeah. Fast track executives, new generation. They don't want to stay 5-10 years in as an assistant manager. They want to be manager in the next 3 years, So anybody want to handle that? João, Flavia.
This is a reality that we deal with. And if you think about, when we talk with the schools, for example, most of them believe and try to use like a mix of methodology, because you have to, you have to use different methodologies because they like what works with one class doesn't work in another one. So it's nice when you mix, especially in these days, for example, that we are giving like live classes. It's not easy if you give a class in 16 hours. It's very hard to have the students with you for 16 hours, as we have like in a presential way. So, but the professors have to be open to understand and to learn new methodologies. And we also, the people who works with or in the PD department, for example, we are also trying to understand and learning new methodologies too. It's something new for us too. It's not only for the professors. I think this is a new thing for everybody, because we are also trying to check what is works in one class and what works in another one, and sometimes what works in one class doesn't work in another one. So if you think about even with the teenagers, for example, or younger students, we have in our MBA, for example, we have a couple classes, and and something that we try in one class and it's successful, for example, we don't have the same successful in the other one. So it's something that we talk about a lot and try to the possibilities, and we have a group discussing new methodologies and exactly what Bill told before, and we try to see if you have some professor that he did something very specific and it worked, we try to share with the other ones. So I think everybody's learning here in this process.
Just one little comment. There's a professional that I think is gonna have a very important role from now on. Is the educational designer or instructional designer, somebody who knows about educational basis, knows about design, experience design, and knows about technology. And working with the teachers, this professional can help them to have a better result and even personalize a little bit the learning experience for the executives. Not even talking about the group, even the personal experience, because the teacher can propose different kind of activities, some that focus on group learning, others individual, others asking everybody to map new trends and share new experiences, what they are doing. So having a view of the whole design process and working in partnership. And I think this is a very important professional that has to be a part of the PD department or a group of professionals like that. Even a designer that works with the visual communication, because now with the screen, just like the regular PowerPoint, lots of text doesn't work. You need visuals, to engage and other things. So I think those dimensions are really going to grow from now on. And in our research, we didn't find many of these kind of professionals being part of the PD department. It was more teachers that know more about innovation. They were taking this role, but maybe bringing those people would really help from now on.
Yeah, I would like to add something. I assume Cesar is talking from Brazil, right, Cesar? And we feel this. I share your perception about this challenge. I kind of junior in executive students, and yes, we are facing challenges related to diversity, challenges related to generations, and each day we feel that we have to know more and more, and beyond our competences, beyond our field of study. And this highlights the importance of the pedagogical department, or whatever we call it. But the faculty cannot be alone, because there are lots and lots of knowledge, of new behaviors, of challenges. And me as a professor, I need this help. I need to have a group to share experience, to collaborate, to say at the end of the day, I had this challenge and I really didn't know how to deal with that. And it's important for us to know how to scaffold this difference. And, sorry?
No, somebody has their mic. Somebody has their mic.
Okay, okay. But it is. I feel today. I feel this need stronger to share and to have someone I don't know, not to have the answers, but sometimes to discuss about the questions. And I think the PD has an important role in this matter.
Great. Well, thank you again. And I'd like to thank all of you for your efforts, not only in compiling and publishing this research report back in 2019, but for joining us today to lead us through the material and to answer many questions. As Bill mentioned during his presentation, just a reminder, the full report is available on the Unicon website. So I encourage you to visit the website, download the report, and read it at your leisure. Also wanted to remind you that you will be getting a link to a recording of today's webinar, and we'd encourage you to share that with colleagues that may have missed the session. Before I close, Bill, any final words, any thoughts?
No, I just want to once again thank Unicon, thank Fundação Dom Cabral, FDC, and I see Professor Aldemir is here. Thank him for the support, Unicon for sponsoring, FDC for all the support they gave us through the 18 months. And again, invite everybody to take a look at the final report. I think our emails are there, so feel free to contact any one of us if you have any further discussions. I think it would be in everybody's interest to further investigate some of these topics that we discussed here in the question and answer period, especially now in these times. Getting back to Mildred, what she said. Professors now they're being forced to face change. They can't afford to resist it anymore. So I think a PD department has a big role to play in this more collaborative environment that will have to become. Because if I do something good, I can tell João. If Cesar has something interesting that he did, he can come back to me. And so I think the PD in an institution can have a very important role in that term. And then once again, thank everybody for their time. It was a pleasure to be with you. It was nice to talk to you. And greetings and salutations from Brazil.
Great. Thanks again, and we hope to see you all back here. Stay tuned for details on upcoming Unicon webinars and Zoom meetings. Thank you again for your time, and wishing you all the best.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Well, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.